is Stephanie from the Stolen Colon, and I'm here with my lovely little sidekick Chandler, and we want to talk about baby wearing with an ostomy. Yes, we are very excited about that. This is a question that I've been asked before about whether it's even possible, just because of the way that a lot of the wraps and carriers go on, and whether or not that will cause any issues with the ostomy. And so as many as you know, I have two kids, an almost 3-year-old and Chandler here who is almost 11 months. And both of my kids have been ones that really like to be held. They don't really like being set down, especially for extended periods of time. And so baby wearing has been a big part of our experience, and we are very big fans of wearing kids around, not just to keep the baby happy, but also so I can have a little bit more freedom to get some things done and to have the use of my hands. And so we are going to demonstrate today some of the different carriers that I have used and how exactly they work, and whether or not an ostomy is even a consideration that you have to think about when using one. Alright, so let's get started. So the first option that I have is a ring sling. These are actually one of my favorite ones because they are just really simple to put on and go. It's basically a long strip of fabric and it has these 2 rings on the end. So I already have this wrap assembled, but if you have any questions about how to put one on, there are tons of tutorials out there that can show you how to use one. So it just slips on right over the shoulder. And it can go on either shoulder, so especially if your bag is something that you're afraid might get in the way, you can put it on one of the other shoulders, whichever one you feel like might work better for you. This is the way that I tend to like to put it on, simply because it gives me the use of my right hand a little bit more. So, as you can see, she's sitting well above my ostomy. There's plenty of space there for it. This really isn't impeding it at all. And the strap just goes around my back like that. And so now I can actually walk around, use my hands, and she's sitting here nice and comfortably. There is also an option if you want to wear it a little bit lower on the hip. This is an especially good option for when the baby gets a little bit bigger and it may be harder to wear them so high. But even still, even though she's kind of right here at my bag, it's really not an issue. I know that some people may be worried about the baby kicking off the bag or anything like that, but that's not been an issue that I've run into. Of course, I usually have on a layer or 2 of clothing in between the baby and the bag, so it's really not something that I've ever had an issue with the baby kicking at. I really like this carrier because it's very easy to put on and go. You can keep it already put together and in your bag, so you can just whip it out, put the baby in, and you're good to go. It's also just really lightweight. One downside is just that since you're putting all the weight on one shoulder, it can get a little tiring after a while, especially once your baby gets a little bit bigger. But again, you can always switch sides as well at that point if you're wanting to kind of distribute the weight a little differently. The next carrier I have is a type of wrap, and basically it is this very long piece of fabric that you have to wrap all around yourself. And it's nice, it's a really stretchy, breathable fabric. Again, this is one that I have used with both of my kids. Chandler is actually getting a little bit old for this one, so she's a little bit big to try to put in here, but hopefully we'll still get a pretty good idea of what it's like to use this. Hi, can I set you down, please? So how this wrap works is you actually have to tie it around like this. So see, this one is a little bit more complicated to put on. But it is nice that once you have it on, the weight is going to be a little more evenly distributed on the shoulders. And this bottom part, you're going to wrap around and tie. So you have a lot of flexibility about where you can tie this. So you can really take your ostomy into consideration as to where's the best place to tie it. So here we'll tie it off here to the side. And even still, even though this, I can pull this up a little bit, keep it away from my bag. Even though it's touching my bag a little bit, my stoma is at least a couple of inches below this. So it's not something that's going to get in the way of that. Like I said, this is a really great option when they're a little bit smaller than this lady here. You can still wrap her up, and then you take this bottom panel, pull it up. And there she is, all nice and snug in there. And you can keep the baby really close this way. You can tuck their heads under, especially when they're younger, when they don't have as much head control. And again, this is above my ostomy. It's really not causing any issues there. I really like the flexibility of this wrap. Really the downside of this wrap is that, as you saw, it takes a little bit of time to get it together and to put it on. So especially when you have a fussy baby. Yes, when you have a fussy baby, sometimes it's a little hard to take the time to actually have to stop and put it on. This isn't one that I usually use when I'm going for a quick trip to the store. Finally, the last kind of carrier we have are the more structured carriers. And these are the kind that are meant usually for when the baby gets a little bigger, especially once they have more head control and support. They do have inserts that you can buy for when they're younger, but I tend to prefer the wraps like I've showed you before and the slings that can keep the baby a little closer and tighter when they're little. These carriers come in many different brands, so some of them may be a little bit different in how they put on and how exactly they might wrap around your body. But for the purposes of this one, this is the one that I have. And as you can see, it snaps around the waist. And this is where some of the issues can possibly come in. Because see, this is going right across my ostomy bag. My stoma is right here at the very bottom of where it's crossing. So this is something that you really have to consider when using this type of a carrier. Personally, I've been able to use this one without any issues, but I do have to be extra conscious of what my ostomy is doing, whether my bag is filling up, making sure that it's not getting blocked in any way, and I might need to kind of smooth things down throughout the time that I'm wearing this. I tend to not wear it for really extended periods of time if I'm not going to have easy access to a bathroom or have the ability to hand off my child to somebody else for a few minutes while I can kind of take care of things and make sure that it's not ballooning under there, or like I said, that nothing's getting blocked. So the weight of the child is kind of around this hip band, as well as in this seat here. So yes, there is some weight being placed here right across my ostomy. So again, it's just the kind of thing that you do have to be conscious of and make sure that you're taking precautions to make sure that there are no issues, any issues with your ostomy bag. So there is one other option with this type of carrier. And that is you can spin it around. And have the child in a back carry. So, as you can see, the carrier is still going across my ostomy, but it's not quite as thick as where it was before. My stoma is now actually below where the band is. And also I just have a little more flexibility since the whole piece of it is not right here, that I can kind of deal with my ostomy bag and make sure that everything is taken care of there. So I think one of the biggest things when you are trying to figure out what sort of baby wearing carrier you want to use with your child is if you have the ability to test one out beforehand or to try one on, I would highly recommend that. There are definitely stores that will allow you to do that. There are some groups in areas that even will rent out carriers to let you try and see if you like it before you actually sit down and purchase one. Or of course, if there's any friends that you have who might have one that you could borrow for a short time in order to figure out what works best for you and whether or not it's going to be an issue with your ostomy. But I really encourage everyone to give it a try. Like I said, we've been very successful with baby wearing, even with my ostomy bag. But as with most things in life, it just takes a little extra thought and care to make sure that the bag is not impacted by whatever carrier it is that I'm using. So thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned something about how to baby wear with an ostomy. Be sure to post any questions below or any comments that you have, advice, or other options that you have found that work well for you. We'd love to hear from that. Please also check out my blog at stolencolon.com. I have lots more on there about living with an ostomy and also parenting with an ostomy, and we'd love to hear from you there as well. Thanks so much for joining us. See you next time.